Dear students and viewers, this is Professor Dr. Ahmed. I'm going to record a very short video on translations because translation is the component, one of the parts of the English teaching skills or communication skills in the BS classes. And for the benefit of my students, I'm going to record a lecture to them so that they can avail it and use it for their translations. Well, every one of us knows that translation in our context, for example, our national language is Urdu, and we use one international language, and that is English. When we translate our national language into English, at that time we call it translation. It is the conversion of one language into other, and we say that the translation has been done. And if we translate the international language into our own language, I mean our first language Urdu, at that time it is called as the retranslation. So in both ways, one language is converted into other. So in my view, translation actually means to convert one language into other. The first language becomes the source language, and the language into which we translate it becomes target language. But it's not that simple, and therefore the topic is not simply translation. The topic is translation skills. It means that when you translate from one language to the other, at that time you need certain skills because of which your translation becomes more comprehensive, more understandable, and more capable of conveying of the meanings which the writer really wants to convey. The experts of translation studies say that it is not possible for any one translator to come in between the source language and the target language. Somehow he lurks in, and therefore the meaning is bound to be damaged. That is why it is very much essential that some skills should be learned before the translation happens. But before I go further, I also need to clarify that when we are writing some language from one language to the other, that may be called translation, but the same type of pattern when it's adopted in spoken English, if somebody is speaking any language which the people don't know, and one person who knows it, he translates that language for the benefit of the other. There or at that time, we call him interpreter. I mean, he's interpreting the language. And this interpretation cannot be done unless and until we have some skills. These skills are directly concerned with translation. So in this lesson, we are going to learn, we are going to see what these skills are and how much they are necessary in order to make our translation skills or the way we translate as effective as possible. So let's see what happens into it. So first of all, it's going to be the type of definition or why translation skills are needed. Translation skill is a skill because many problems in translation, including the linguistic and the cultural, depend on practice. This very reason why we need translation skill goes to explain this thing on two levels. One is linguistic and that is cultural. These two things are really very important when somebody is going to attempt translation of the source language into the target language. First time, one cannot be that successful, but with the passage of time, with the practices, one becomes successful, and that is why it is a skill, it is not simply a capability. Then translation theory cannot teach a translator to write well, but it can provide training to acquire the skills needed for achieving accuracy and economy, which are two main aims of translation. Here again, two levels are there. One is accuracy and economy. By accuracy, I mean the exact meaning which are present in the source language should be provided in the target language as well. Then this translation is successful, very much successful. And alongside that, economy of words is to be used. I mean, one is not required to just provide words, one is required to provide comprehensive words. I mean, the kind of conciseness and the preciseness has also to be followed without damaging the meaning. So that is why in order to do so, one needs to have the skills, and that is why translation is not simply translation, it is the translation skills which make the translation possible. And the third thing is that translation actually means to convert one's source language into target language. But when we do so at that time, though translation is taking place, there are some problems which may happen. There are certain things which are necessary to learn, and that is why the next coming slides are like that. For example, the translator. One translator has to be a person who is not biased at all. I mean, you should not think that he is belonging to Pakistan or he's belonging to India, or he is reading the language which is the language of someone who's not a friend, who is a foe or enemy. The translator's concern is not with that, so therefore he should not be biased at all. If the translator is biased, definitely his choice of words, his idea of translation, his provision of details will be damaged, and as a result, the exact meaning wouldn't come. He will come in between really the source language and the target language, and as a result, a lot of meaning possibly will change. Same is the case with the cultural aspect. The translator must have a good knowledge of the culture of the target language. Only then he can make a possibility of translating the things. For example, in Europe, dogs are very much loved, and so the bitches are very much loved. But so they use the word dog with love, with kind of care, as for example, watchdog. They do not use in the hatred term, it's a kind of normal term. But in case of Pakistan, when you name the word dog into Urdu, kuta for example, that gives a type of hatred or dislike type of thing, though the people do not hate it, but this is the kind of thing which is associated with this culture. Same is the case with mention of the body parts, for example. Same is the case with the mention of women, for example. That's not that possible in Pakistani society, which is so much possible in the English or American society. So therefore, while translating, one should have a good knowledge of the culture, whether it goes to give benefit or exact translation or meaning is possible or not. Then the personality traits are again very much important. What is the type of personality we are having? This personality can cause a trouble. I mean, if we have certain traits like if we are having faster brain and faster mind, faster habits, or we are lazy one and therefore we will lose the meaning in one way or the other. If we are suffering from some kind of racial ism or some kind of dislike for the other people, schizophrenia type of thing we are having, even then the translation will not be the real one, because our conceptions, our complexes or our the views would come there, and they would definitely change the meaning of the source language when it's going to be converted into the target language. Similarly, there are many influences of the first language. The styles are there, the ways of speech are there, certain missing of the sounds and creating of the sounds, certain other stresses may be possibly there. These things or the influences of the first language are there, which definitely occur at that time when a translator is doing. So therefore, the translator should try to avoid this type of influence of the first language. And same is the case with pronunciation. For example, our pronunciations, as in Pakistan, are mostly faulty because we cannot speak in that way. Just a few people who have interacted with the foreigners, and so they are able to speak some good pronunciation. Otherwise, good pronunciation is lacking. And so, if pronunciation is not good, at that time the translator, while speaking the translation, may be speaking in such a way that the listener may not be able to understand. So the translator has to have a very good pronunciation level of the target language also. Then the matter of idioms and proverbs is also there. Not all idioms and proverbs are translatable from one language to the other. One has to create the sense and give that. But there are many proverbs and many idioms which can be translated from one language to the other. These are universal most of the time, a little bit with a little bit of cultural differences. So possibly, if we know many of the idioms and proverbs, it's possible for us to translate them into proverbial and idiomatic sense rather than giving the literal type of sense. So the translator has to have these characteristics develop. If he doesn't have these characteristics, he may be able to develop, and developing of the characteristics mean that the skills are being learned. That is why this thing is called translation skills rather than calling simple translation. This slide is very different one, and here some of the aspects have been written, what the translator needs in order to make a good translation or to have or possess the good translation skills. If you look at the very first one, it says cultural understanding. As I discussed in the last part, it's very much necessary that we may be understanding the culture of the target language, but also we should know our own culture and realize what are the differences. If we do so, definitely it will be very good way of translating. And then beneath that is the project management. I mean, if larger project is there, one may be able to manage in a good way. Then on the if we continue downward, still we have the language and literacy. I mean, we should know the intricacies of language, the grammar of language, the kind of complexities which involve in the language, and the role language is played, one should know. If we know that, it's very good to use the knowledge of language and grammar and syntax and other things which can be used in order to make translation as good as possible. And if you go a little bit further, there is a communication. Communication skills are very much important. Even if you are able to translate, but you cannot communicate to the people, your translation is useless. So therefore, one must be able to create a type of environment in which the communication is also possible. Making decisions, what you need to say, what you want to say, what you want to write should be quick and easy, so that the brain may be able to process the information and provide to the people who want to listen to you. Then information technology has come forward. We should have a good knowledge of that, because these days very little interpreters are required. The translations are possible. Many languages Google is able to translate very quickly. So one should have a good knowledge if one goes to translate, and that can be confirmed, that can be created with the help of the machine translation as well. So in this way, information is also required. So this is the chart type of thing which a translator should have in him. He should be equipped with these. I have already in the last slide talked about these things, and these are now interpreted. Students can take the smaller points also to use in order to talk about how our translator should be and how he should be using his skills. The language and literacy, as the topic was there, that goes to define that we should have good understanding of the source language. Then we should have some writing skills of the target language. After that, we may be able to code and decode. Some type of knowledge should be available to us, and editing and proofreading is again very much good when written translation is done. In the ending portion, we can say that some type of spelling and grammar should also be known to you. So, language and literacy both are very much necessary in order to translate or develop translation skills. And for this purpose, one may be able to have the different patterns of language, different sections and levels of language, learning and teaching. One may be having a good grammatical skills, and one may be having other vocabulary skills, and so that the translation may be done very well. So, not only that, when translation is done, some type of proofreading or editing should also be in the mind of the person who is translating. So, in that way, lots of things are required, which as a whole are called as the translation skills. Some of the communication skills should also be learned by the person. For example, one should be able to clearly define, clearly say what one is saying. Simple words and structures, ability, use of these things should be necessary. And after that, one should try to translate the things in such a way that one appears to be friendly instead of appearing to be antagonistic, or some other type of attitudes may be there. One may be able to get some type of feedback also. Listening and questioning habit should be there. One may be able to listen as well, take up the question, ask the question. Only at that time one is able to talk to the people in English or write in that way. One should be able to check the understanding, how much understanding has been done. And same is the case with the topic. If some topic is given for translation, at that time there should be some type of check as well, how much the people have understood and how much they have not understood. So these skills should also be in the mind of the person when someone is going to translate the source language into the target language. These days, technology is really very much important. Computers are playing a very significant role. Even very small gadgets are able to translate the things very quickly. And same is the case with the Google translation, which is available online. It readily translates number of things. So one should know which are the softwares or hardwares which can be used. Here two are written, that is Al-Misbar and Al-Wafi. It's not necessary that students may follow that, because these are traditional old softwares. These days, Google is the best translator. So one may be having some type of knowledge of this thing, that how you can translate one from one language to the other, and how you can remove the mistakes and errors which the machine makes. Definitely, machine does make some of the errors. Then we should be able to manage the files and keep the files in computer disk in such a way that we may be able to restore, recover, or reach it as soon as possible and as and when we want. These days, e-commerce is going on. This is the type of business which is conducted on internet. But for this purpose, one may be able to understand the language of the person, the culture of the person with whom one is doing the business. So in that way, it's very much necessary again for the sake of e-commerce that one should have a good knowledge of that. One may be able to develop some business skills also if one is doing e-commerce, and these business skills are a part of the language skills or translation skills. So therefore, while learning business skills, one should be able to learn these language skills as well. Cultural aspect is again very much important. While translating, for example, what influences the development of source language? I mean, how you are going to give the sentences or the words or the expression, the pronunciation or the style that the listener is able to have a good influence on that. But if this thing is not done in a rightful way, the bad influences could be there. Same is the case with the knowledge of the source language. One should be able to have that. Sometimes it happens that the translator has the knowledge of the target language, but he doesn't have that much knowledge of the source language. So as a result, he may not be able to take the right meaning towards the target language or towards the listener. So one needs to have the knowledge of the source language as well. One should have some characteristics in the mind that what will be the kind of problematic thing for the people. It may be irritating, and what could be the good thing. So this should be used while developing the translation skills. Stereotyping, definitely we try to create the idols of the past by bringing them forward, stereotyping some of the characters. For example, women are the other people who are not that good in life. So if we do so, there could be hazards of translating occurring in the bad shape of translation also. Then moods and styles of language speaking and styles are very much important, because sometimes the styles which we use in source language, possibly they are not used in the target language. So at that time, one should be able to understand how these things are to be conducted and how the kind of style and mood of the people may be translated in such a way. So therefore, this is again very much important with respect to the styles and the moods. Translation skills basically is about translating from one language to the other, but then in order to keep it correct, there are two possible ways. One way is that the translator spent a very long time in the European countries, the English-speaking countries like UK and USA, and therefore he's developed sufficient skill that without caring for the grammatical principles or other things, one is able to translate as a matter of habit. But then if you are living in a country which is though English speaking country, but it's not giving that importance to English language as our country Pakistan is there. Because of that, the people don't have good grammatical knowledge. In this way, they can make the mistakes. They can create such odd situation where the meaning may not be understood in that way as it should be understood. What are the things which are necessary? One should be able to make a good use of verb, not only with respect to the subject, but also with respect to the tense. So the knowledge of the verb, forms of verbs, styles of the verbs, function, action, etc., everything should be known to us so that we can employ right verb at the right place. Same should be the case with the voice, the active and passive voice. One should have the knowledge of that while translating. Same as the way with the narration. I mean, the thing which is said in the source language, in the direct narration, you have to say in that direct narration. And if it's said in the indirect narration, one needs to learn that. So therefore, we should have a good knowledge of narration. Adjectives are different from one country to the other, one language to the other. One should have a good knowledge of these adjectives, not only simple knowledge of adjective, but also of that of degrees, comparative, superlative, etc. Adverbs are again very much tricky. These things should be known with the good practice. It can be had, and adverbs knowledge is necessary. Article is such a thing which is in English having a very complex situation. It's not that easy to use right article, but the translator is to develop such skills of using of the articles. I mean the, a or an. Prepositions are again very much confusing in case of Pakistani people, because we have fewer prepositions as compared to English language, and same is the case with the conjunctions. They play a very different role of the style is there. Some of the translators have used the style of English conjunctions in Urdu as well. So the matter is resolving, but still it's not possible for a translator to do these things quickly. He needs to learn so that with the passage of time he become expert. Same is the case with interjections. We have different interjections where the translators, the use of English language and that of Urdu has enabled many Pakistanis that the same interjections are used in Urdu also, which are being used in English. So therefore, it may not be the big problem, but the knowledge of these interjections is very much necessary. Now, I have copied here one Urdu paragraph so that whatever we say about translation skills, we should check whether how much our translation skills are good or they are bad. Urdu is here, and after some time you will be able to see English and you can compare with that as well. But let's see the first sentence. I will do just one or two sentences. After that, the students will do themselves. Like if we have the first sentence, Tandrusti badi nemat hai. In this sentence, first of all, we need to capture what is the tense. The tense is present and there is no verb like that. So therefore, we need to go for the subject. The subject is Tandrusti, health, and then the verb is. Other things can be translated simply. Badi, I mean great, nemat is blessing. So we can say that health is wealth. Problem in a way as we say proverbially, but in the literal sense we can say that health is a great blessing. Then लेकिन आदमी जब तक तंदुरुस्त रहता है, so again we have the present because of है, and the verb is going to be रहता है, remains. Admi is the subject and but is the conjunction. But till the time man remains healthy, इस नेमत की कदर नहीं करता. It's a negative sentence, but it's present. Again, the subject will remain same because it's connected with the last sentence also. So he does not value this blessing. जब कोई मामूली भारी बीमारी भी इस पे ऐसे आकर घेर ले तो इसकी कदर मालूम हो जाती है. तो and जब, these are two things which are in this sentence. So it's a type of conditional sentence in which when time will be used, when a very small disease aakar gher le, it's a type of present. If it is enveloping a person, तो इसको इसकी कदर मालूम होती है, then he comes to know its value. Then मगर अगर जिस्म के किसी हिस्से में तकलीफ हो जाती है तो सारा जिस्म इसका असर कबूल करता है. Again, it's going to be present and it's the kind of universal truth being talked about. So that's why it can be translated in present tense. And so if, by using if a part of the body, जिस्म के किसी हिस्से में, if in any part of the body there is pain, तो comma or then we can use comma, all the body accepts its influence. So the remaining sentence students will do themselves. See whether the translation is the same one as we did. For example, look here. Health is a great blessing, but man does not value it as long as is healthy. He is healthy as long as he is healthy. When he catches a minor disease, he realizes worth. If there's a pain in any part of the body, the whole body feels its presence, right? In that way, a very good translation is done and the meaning does not distort. So by improving translation skills, one is able to have very good translation. So that's the final thought. Good luck for your translation students. So today we have tried to see how we can develop our translation skills by understanding how a translator should be, and after that some of the tools may be learned, and then learning of the tool, maybe I have interpreted what these tools are. And these days we have the machine translation also that's mentioned, and after that grammatical knowledge. Everything combined together can make us good translators, okay? That's it from me for this day. Hopefully seeing you again in some next coming lecture. So far, I think if you have learned something, if you have enjoyed, benefited from it, then do not fail to hit the subscribe button of my channel. Thank you very much, all of you.